In the previous video, I began talking about how to read, and my discussion was in relation to Lisa Davies' essay, Where Do We Stand? The first essay in Unit 1 in our compulsory English course for BBA and BBIS first semester. And in that video, I talked about scanning, skimming. And I also talked about Bloom's taxonomy of educational objectives, where I said that as we read, we need to remember what we read, we need to understand what we read, we need to apply what we understand, we need to analyze the components of what we read, we need to evaluate, and finally, we need to create something out of our reading. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about the 4 levels of interacting to the text. As we read any text, for example, if we read Lisa Davies' essay, Where Do We Stand? There are 4 things we can do. Number 1 is literal comprehension. Here we talk about the context and the writer. For example, Lisa Davies' essay, we encounter this essay in the book New Directions, Reading, Writing, and Critical Thinking, edited by Peter S. Gardner. That book has essays categorized under 5 themes. First theme is intercultural communication. Second theme is education. Third theme is mass media and technology. Fourth theme is gender and sexuality. And the fifth theme is work. So in the first theme, intercultural communication, there is an essay, Where Do We Stand by Lisa Davies. So as we open chapter 1 in that book by Peter S. Gardner, New Directions, Reading, Writing, and Critical Thinking, on the screen you can see, though the picture you are seeing is not the same as in the book. I downloaded this picture from the Google. So it has a chapter heading like intercultural communication. That is the theme of the chapter. Then there's a subheading, subtitle, a writer's technique, main ideas, and supporting details. In this chapter, we will learn about the technique of main idea and supporting details in writing. Then you have a picture, though in Gardner's book, there is another picture. Here, I brought this picture. It also shows how you can see 2 ladies belonging to 2 different races, and how you can see each of them is wearing typical dresses and accessories, you can see. Then below the picture, you have a chapter opening paragraph where it says that in this chapter, intercultural communication, you will explore cultural differences in values, beliefs, and behaviors, and intercultural problems. So I was earlier talking about, let me show that page to you. Here under literal comprehension, I was saying that we begin by talking about the context of the essay. And so I'm showing you the context of this essay in this book. It is given in the lesson Intercultural Communication, which talks about cultural differences in values, beliefs, behaviors, and intercultural problems that result from these differences. So here in this chapter, we read essays which talk about how people from diverse cultures regard time, how they express themselves verbally and non-verbally, and how they interact successfully. This is the context of the essay. Now, wait a minute. We have this essay, American Values and Assumptions, the first essay, core reading 1. And then we have this second essay, core reading 2, that is Lisa Davies' essay, Where Do We Stand? Now, if you get into the essay, you can further explore the context, let me show you the context of this essay itself. For example, if you for example, here there is an introductory brief note about the author. It also gives you the context of the essay. For example, it says in the following article, Lisa Davies, a freelance writer in the United States, focuses on cultural differences in the use of personal space, one type of non-verbal communication, and on problems arising from these differences. Where Do We Stand was originally published in the magazine in Health in 1990. Now you read more about the context and you find that this essay was published in the magazine in Health in the year 1990, and it was written by Lisa Davies, and this essay talks about cultural differences in the use of personal space, that is a type of non-verbal communication. So the context of this essay, Where Do We Stand, is communication. More minutely, the context of this essay is non-verbal communication. More exactly, the context of this essay is how people use personal space while they have conversations in public places. So I said, sorry, I have sore throat. I said, under literal comprehension, we first provide a brief context of the essay and the writer. Where is the story taking place, or where is this essay taking place? So this essay is placed in that chapter, and the events of this essay, if you see, let me take it to the first paragraph. It will give you where the events of this essay is taking place. I have an idea about that. For example, let me read the first paragraph. Call it the dance of the jet set, the diplomat's tango. A man from the Middle East, say, falls into conversation with an American, becomes animated, takes a step forward. The American makes a slight postural adjustment, shifts his feet, edges backward. A little more talk, and the Arab advances. A little more talk, and the American retreats. By the end of the cocktail party, says Middle East expert Peter Bechtold of the State Department's Foreign Service Institute, you have an American in each corner of the room because that's as far as they can back up. So now if you read this paragraph carefully, you have some better idea about the context where the events of this essay are taking place. So this seems to be a program, some kind of conference or meeting or interaction or party organized by the State Department's Foreign Service Institute. The American government's State Department's Foreign Service Institute seems to have organized an interaction program or picnic program or some kind of meeting program where people from different countries, particularly diplomats, have gathered, and then they are having a party, they are drinking and they are dancing, and then there is a person from Middle East and he joins an American in conversation. Then the person from the Middle East has one assumption about how to use public space, and Americans have another beliefs about public space. And when these two, the Middle Eastern and the American, meet, then they have confusion. For example, the Middle Eastern fellow likes to stay very close to a person they talk to, whereas Americans have this sense of private space and they don't like to be too close with someone you are talking to. And then this differences in the assumption about how people use or occupy public space. This leads to bitter experience. For example, the Middle Eastern fellow feels chilled, whereas the American feels bullied. So as you read the essay, the opening paragraph, you have better understanding about the context of the essay and where the story is taking place. When, as you read the essay, we can find out in literal comprehension, If time is given, like mentioned 1990, this was written 1990. What is the text saying? Now here you have to be able to summarize the thesis statement or the main idea. For example, if I take the paragraph 4 in the essay, let me show you. If you go to paragraph 4, for example, here, in paragraph 4 of the essay, you have the main idea of the essay. At least we assume we are reading it right, but from culture to culture, from group to group, within a single country, even between the sexes, the language of this space has distinctive accents, confusing umlauts that leaves a lot of room for misinterpretation, and the stakes have gotten higher as business has become increasingly international and populations multicultural. The sentence which I have bold-faced and highlighted, this is the central idea of this essay. This is the thesis statement of the essay. This is the main thing which the writer says in this essay. So as you come back to the point we were discussing, yes, what is the text saying? I showed you, restate the argument. The line I showed you in paragraph 4, that is the major argument of this essay. And you have to tell the same argument using another word that is called literal comprehension. Literal means understanding exactly what the author is saying. And in literal comprehension, you do not add your view, you just retell what you believe the author is trying to say. This is the first level of reading. And this level of reading, if you see, matches very much with Bloom's taxonomy category of remembering and understanding. The second level is interpretation. Now, in interpretation, sometimes, why sometimes, often, writers say one thing directly, but they mean something else, right? That is, when you make meanings which are not written in black and white, but you understand that this is what that is trying to say, that's interpretation. So here you look for key points in the work of fiction and non-fiction, which are implied, not directly stated, right? As a reader of a story, if you're reading a story, you should know the meaning behind the plot. What is the writer trying to say? For example, you will read a story titled A Coward, which is about intra-cultural characteristics of Indian culture, about caste system. A boy from Brahmin family falls in love with a girl from uh, a Banya family, and then at the end of the story, it has a tragic end. The girl commits suicide because the boy rejects to marry the girl under his father's pressure. So that story is giving the message that we should uh, take caste issues seriously and we should fight with this social evil. That is what is meant by the meaning behind the plot. I'm sorry if you haven't read the essay. I hope you have read the essay that I used as an example. So here in interpretation, you ask the question, can some points be extended to circumstances beyond those directly touched upon by the author? For example, you read Lisa Davies' essay, Where Do We Stand? And then can you relate Davies' ideas with how the members of your family member use space? Can you relate Lisa Davies' ideas about what she's trying to say regarding what the people who are involved in intercultural communication need to learn? For example, what do the international diplomats need to learn about different cultures? What is Lisa Davies trying to achieve by writing this essay? For whom is she writing this essay? Definitely, the primary audience of her essay are those people who make international travels in connection to diplomatic travels and business travels, and who have to come across people from different cultures. So that indirect meaning, that implied meaning is interpretation. Interpretation is a bit more challenging and complex than literal comprehension. Uh, it requires intelligence to be able to interpret a text properly. Now, the third level, even more challenging, is critical thinking. Two words, critical and thinking. If you focus on the word critical, it means you pass your judgment. You try to weigh how good the ideas the writer is expressing are, how valuable the writer's ideas are. You try to see what is good and what is not so good, where you agree to, where you don't agree to. And critical thinking also means judging authors' claims and assertions and ideas in the light of the reasons and evidences the author brings. Does the writer just make claims without proper evidences to support, reasons to support? If so, then the author is not doing a good job. Or does the writer also provide true reasons to support his ideas, claims? Then the writer is doing a good job. So here in critical thinking, you separate the wheat from the chaff. When you grind wheat, then you have the kernel and then you have the husk outside the kernel husk. Then the husk is not useful. You separate, right? You use a sift to sift the flour, and then uh, you have the white flour on one side and you have the brown husk on the side, and you throw it away. In other words, you decide what is useful in the lesson and what is not so useful in the lesson, what you should remember from the lesson and what you can easily forget from the lesson. Here you try to see things objectively without emotions, right? You look for if the writer is has said something wrong, if there is some mistake in the writing, if there is some flaws in the writer's argument, right? uh, you criticize, but you also try to understand that every piece of writing, however erroneous, it has some soul of truth. Every piece of writing says something useful, something true. Now, just a minute, I got a call. Let me pause for a while and then I will. So, I said, whatever you read, however faulty the text may be, but every text has some essence of truth to uh, take home. Here you can ask if the writer has said something incorrect or wrong, right? What arguments of the writer you accept, what you don't accept. For example, when you read Lisa Davis' essay carefully, you think what points is making seem to be true and what points is making seem to be uh, untrue, right? And you write why you can't accept what she's saying, right? It's like taking the essay through a filtering process. And what is that filter? Your critical thinking faculty is your filter. What is critical thinking? Critical thinking is asking, why should I believe what you're saying? Critical thinking is saying, what is the proof to support what you're saying? Critical thinking is saying, what is the reason that you can give to support what you're saying? Why should I believe what you're saying? That's what is meant by that filtering process of critical thinking, right? So you look here, you look for positive aspect of the story as well as negative aspects of the story, and you decide what is more valuable and what is less valuable in the story. Now, the fourth level of interacting to the text is assimilation. So, assimilate, let me just use Google Gemini and check for the word verb assimilate, what it means in English. Then I'll continue. Just let me open Gemini. Okay. So look here, assimilate means to absorb or integrate something into a larger whole. Here are a few examples. In learning, assimilate means a student assimilates new information by understanding and remembering it. In culture, immigrants often assimilate into new culture by adopting its customs, language, and values. In biology, the body assimilates food by breaking it down into nutrients and incorporating them into its tissues. So in learning, assimilate means uh, following the new information, following new understanding, and then changing your existing understanding, right? So let's read here. Assimilation means making something of what you have just read part of yourself. As you eat food, your body disintegrates the food, and then it digests the food, and it takes useful minerals, vitamins, proteins, and it absorbs into the bloodstream, and you feel fresh after eating food. You feel strong, and whatever is not useful, the body takes out through the process of urination and defecation, right? In the same way, as you read something, there may be ideas that you want to follow. For example, in grade 7, I saw a quotation in my classroom which said, those who, those who sleep, their fortune also sleeps. How did I assimilate? I stopped sleeping a lot since then. I never overslept. I will wake up early in the morning because I always remembered that quotation. One who is lazy cannot succeed in life. That was the meaning of the quotation. One who is lazy cannot succeed in life. I read this quotation in class 7 when I was 13 years old. And even today, I always realize that I should not be lazy. I should be active and I should work hard. So I assimilated that idea, means I made that idea part of my life. So in assimilation, you ask a question, which ideas from this essay, Lisa Davies' essay, am I going to follow in my life? Texts are meant to touch them. So you ask a question, what points Lisa Davis makes touches my feelings and emotions? Which points I really like? How how Lisa Davis' ideas impact my life? How after reading Lisa Davis' essay, my ways of looking at different cultures had changed. How while trying to understand, interpret, critically filter Lisa Davis' essay, what is the meaning of Davis' essay for me? Can I relate what Lisa Davis says to my life, my family, my culture, Nepali people? Can Lisa Davis' discussion about how people use public space while having conversations help me understand how Nepali people behave in public space? How consumers behave in marketplace, for example, right? Is there something which I could not understand before reading her essay and now I understand better, right? Did reading Lisa Davis' essay help me appreciate some ideas better? Does Lisa Davis' essay suggest some connections between different cultures which I was not aware about before I read her essay? Now, assimilation is following what you read. Assimilation is making something part of your life. As I said, I read a quotation in class 9, for example, which said that concentration is the key to opening your heart. And even today, when somebody is speaking in public places like in meetings and conferences, I keep my eyes closed and I listen with closed eyes. Because when you keep your eyes closed, there is visual distraction. I keep my eyes closed to concentrate. And when I concentrate with closed eyes and listen carefully, I understand better. I read this quotation in class 9 when I was barely 16 or 17, and I'm 56 today. I'm following it. This is assimilation. So in this video, I talked about the 4 levels of interacting to the text, and I try to relate to the essay. When I go to the essay, I'll again repeat these ideas: literal comprehension, interpretation, critical thinking, and assimilation. Okay, now assignment. Write this question and write its answer. And when you come to my class, submit its answer. The question goes like this. What are the 4 levels of interacting to the text? Name them. Briefly explain what you understand by each of them. Also give examples from Lisa Davis' essay or any essay or any text which you read in grade 11 and 12. This is the question as assignment after watching the video. Now you can pause the video and now write the answer. You will write at least 4 paragraphs because there are 4 topics or 5 paragraphs, and then you will submit this essay in class when you come to class. Now, after this, there is a third video in the series. Now, in the third video, I will talk about what is an argument and how to analyze an argument, and I will relate this discussion about argument with the essay. Here I stop.